us. Hey, come on in. Good to have you guys here. We're going to be talking a little bit about marriage and relationships and what that's all about. I hope you guys had a good day, Kristen and Katie and everyone else who's joining us. Oh, thanks. I look cute. Thank you. Just trying to look like you guys. How y'all doing? I hope you guys are having a good day. It's a little bit cooler today in the Toronto area because it rained last night, but the cooler temperatures are good. Those of you who are in relationships, just drop it in the chat. Let me know if you're in a relationship, how long you've been in a relationship, if you're married or not. Just want to see what people are dealing with. Hope you guys are all well. All right. The music is just for a little bit. Let's turn it off. We want to get into it tonight. I might have a lot actually to talk about. So before I get into the marriage piece, I just want to say, it might seem to the Black community that no one's posting their Black squares anymore and that the whole world has sort of gone back to normal. Nobody else is talking about Black Lives Matter. But I just want to say that this is, for me, my resistance, right? I'm a Black woman and I believe in Black relationships. I believe in Black love. I believe that good, solid relationships build community. We build families. We raise children. And even if marriages or relationships don't work, if you have solid communication, like we're going to talk about tonight, then you can co-parent well without the baggage and the drama, and the kids will be better off for it. The kids will know who they are as they walk into this world, and that's what it's all about. So this is my little resistance. All right, that being said, Kristen says you look like summer. No kids tonight, so can't stick around for long. Good, I'm glad you have some alone time with hubby. That's what it's all about. Carly says she's married for just under a year. Good for you. Hey, Sherilyn. No, you're not in a relationship. Yes, Nora, you've been married for 19 years. 19 years strong. Ha, I see you. I'm just 1 year behind you. Congratulations. Is it 20 years next year? It'll be 20 years for us into. Hey, Kelly, how's it going? You guys let us know how long you've been in a relationship or how long you've been married or whether or not you're single or whether you're not, whether you're done with that game. So tonight we are talking about relationships. You know, you're in a relationship, you guys are dating exclusively, or you are getting serious about your relationship, or you are looking to, whether or not you're probably looking to break up. I don't know. If you're married for a long time, relationships take work. They take hard work. When I was new in my marriage, I had a friend who was married for about 11 years, and she would say to me, Roxanne, marriage is hard work. And I would say to her, girl, you're making it look too bad. But I came to realize that she is right. Kelly said, married 3 years, together for almost 13. That's wonderful. People often think that once you get married, relationships are going to be just a walk in the park. And sometimes when you get married, it's total bliss for a little while. And other times, people who are just married will tell me, we've been arguing since we were dating and we're still arguing. And that can be an issue. But it doesn't mean that it's insurmountable. Planning a wedding, if you're married, planning a wedding is so much fun. But after the wedding happens, there's a lot of work that you have to put in, right? When you're getting married, people will go to the ends of the earth to get those lavender balloons that you need, or to get the doves that you need to be released, or, whatever it is that you need for your wedding to make it happen. People will go out of their way to make it happen. But when you're married and the guests have gone, when the wedding is over and the guests have gone, you have a marriage that you have to work on. And if you're not married, if you're in a committed relationship, you still have to work on it. Sometimes when your relationship hits a bump in the road, you feel like you can't tell anyone that you're struggling, especially if you've been in the game for a little while. You feel there's almost a sense of shame. And I think I also get that from people who are going to therapy for the first time. When you're from certain cultures or backgrounds, it seems as though therapy is taboo and you have something to be ashamed of. Well, the truth of the matter is you have nothing to be ashamed of. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You're actually doing the hard work. And that is actually to be commended. You know, I want to talk a little bit about background. We all come from somewhere, even if you weren't raised by your parents, even if you were, I don't know, found in a basket somewhere. We all have history. We all have a background. And some people were raised in very abusive relationships. Some people were raised in loud, boisterous homes. Some people were raised in homes where it was icy cold and no one talked about anything and no one shared emotion. And some people were raised in wonderful, lively homes filled with laughter and lots of communication and lots of sharing. Well, guess what? If you're from a home with lots of laughter and sharing and lovely communication, and you're coupled with someone who is from that icy cold home where they don't share and arms are crossed and no one talks about emotion, then you're gonna have some trouble. One person is gonna be saying, talk to me, and the other person is gonna say, well, I have nothing to say and I don't know how to share with you. And as much as you have love and affection for each other, sometimes it can be hard to get past those barriers. But I do want to say that you have to keep your background in mind. You have to understand where your partner is coming from. You know, whether or not it's, you know, I got spanked as a child and I think my children should be spanked, or I was never spanked as a child and how dare you, that's abusive, right? To, you know, I got everything I wanted and, well, I had a part-time job since I was 11. There are going to be different values, right? If you are from a conservative or sort of right-leaning family and you're married to someone who is very left-leaning or has a more liberal worldview, then you're gonna have differences, right? You know, hopefully you get married to someone or you couple with someone whose views are compatible to yours. But if not, and you guys are arguing all the time, then some of these things are the reason why. Okay, what else do I have to say? All right, so some of you who are of a certain age may remember the book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Hey, how you doing? Let me know if you know about that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Who's heard of that book? Just send up some hearts if you've heard of that book. I can't remember the name of the author right now, but it really spoke to the differences, the fundamental differences between men and women. And I can't really remember right now all the details in that book, but one thing I can say is that I have found some fundamental differences between men and women in all the years that I've been doing therapy with people and couple therapy. From the fact that women tend to speak about 20,000 words per day. Did you know that? As women, we spew 20,000 words per day. And sorry, for the purpose of this live, I am speaking about heterosexual relationships. Not exclusively, but generally. We speak about 20,000 words a day as women. And men, who can guess how many words men speak a day? Just throw it in the chat if you think you can, if you think you know. What do you think? Women are talk. Men, not so much. They generally speak about 7,000 words per day. 7, compared to our 20,000. So that's why, yes, right? Close. So that's why we're always, Kelly says 5. Yes, it can seem that way. We're always wanting to talk and communicate, and men, they're just a little bit guarded. You know, when I get excited, I bubble over and I spill over, and I always have tons of things to say, and I share, and my husband gets excited and he's like, yeah, that was cool. I'm like, seriously, can you come up with something else? What about when you send your partner a really long text message or a question that's this long, and they answer their responses. Cool. That drives me bananas, right? That can definitely be the cause for some arguments. But we do have some fundamental differences in communication. One of the things that I often say to clients is that men have minds and emotions that are like the grid on a waffle. Do you guys eat waffles? So those little squares. When you pour syrup on them, sometimes it doesn't spill over because they fall into those little squares. Men's emotions and minds are like those little squares. Sports in one square, family in one square, work in the other, health in the other. My favorite TV show, the movies, the guys, working out, going to the doctor. All of those things are separate and unrelated. Whereas for women, we are like a bowl of spaghetti. Everything is intertwined and touching, and one thing impacts the other. And, we go off on a tangent about something that our boss says at work, and we're still thinking about it when we come home, and it impacts how we connect with the kids, or impacts how we connect with our partner. Everything is totally intertwined. And no wonder men and women don't see eye to eye on many things. So, for example, a client might say, my husband, something happened. We had an argument, 5 weeks ago. And he said that he was sorry, but he kind of half-assed it. Like, he didn't really say it properly. And I am still mad about that. And I go to work and I think about it. And I take care of the children and I think about it. And I do the laundry and I think about it. And, he wants to get busy in the bedroom, and that's not happening because I'm thinking about it. Whereas the male partner is like, that was a couple weeks ago. I said I was sorry. And I've kind of moved on. Like, he's packed it away in a square over there that says argument in the past. And he has totally moved on. It doesn't mean that he is cold about it. It doesn't mean that he doesn't care. It doesn't mean that he doesn't consider your feelings, but he has no idea why you're angry. And you are here thinking, well, he should know. That's another thing I'm going to touch on. They should know. He has no idea why you're angry. He has no idea why you're stomping around the house, why you're giving him side eye, why you're giving him the cold shoulder under the sheets. It is really difficult for them to have thoughts that intertwine the way that a female's thoughts would. So let's see. I was just sort of distracted by the chat. Charlene was talking about the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. She says, never read it. I felt it wouldn't speak to me as a Black woman. Yes, you're right. But there are some points in there that are helpful in terms of relationships. So the other thing is that, while men can cut certain things off, some things are not connected for them. For women, they are, and they have a hard time understanding where we're coming from, and we have a hard time understanding where they're coming from. Okay, let's see. A little bit about intimacy. All right, so for the most part, I'm not speaking exclusively for all men, for all women, but for the most part, in terms of my years of providing therapy and the couples that I've worked with, for the most part, women need to have their emotional tank full before they will get into any fireworks in the bedroom. Before we can get it going under those sheets, women need to have their emotional tank full. So that means if we're having a fight, we're not having sex. If we, if you're not doing your part to help the home run smoothly, we're not having sex. If we don't feel supported by you, we're not having sex. If we feel that we wore a new dress today and you didn't notice, we're not having sex. If I got my hair done and you didn't notice, nothing's happening tonight. We need to feel loved and pursued and supported and emotionally safe in order for that to happen. because we're a bowl of spaghetti and everything is intertwined. But for men, my waffle-brained men, who I love so dearly, sex is a little bit different, right? And, if for women, the idea is that foreplay happens at the beginning of the day. Let's say intimacy happens at nighttime. Foreplay happens in the morning. Like, did you unpack the dishwasher? Did you help to take out the garbage? Are you helping the kids get ready for school? Did you call her at work to ask her, did she get in okay? When she had a difficult time with her boss, did you call her and check in, or did you respond to her text messages, right? That's how the mental foreplay tends to build for women. And then when it comes to time for intimacy, it's a lot easier for women to engage, because they feel loved, they feel seen, they feel connected, they feel supported. And so the physical aspect happens a lot easier. For men, on the other hand, sex is how they fill their tank. And once they are able to get physical with their female partner, then you'll find that they smile more, they're a little bit softer, they're willing to do other things around the home, they want to check in to see how you're doing. They notice that you got your hair done, they notice that your nails got done, they ask you if you want to go get your nails done, they're willing to help out more with the kids. And so I've had clients say to me, if that's the case, then we're on this never-ending cycle and no one is happy. However, what I would say to that, what I have said to that, is that's where the give and take comes into play. Kelly says, that's interesting, never thought about it that way. That's how the give and take comes in, right? Husband may not feel like he wants to help out they're supposed to, you're in a relationship, but they may not want to, let's say they're not feeling up to it, and they may not want to help out with the errands, or they may not be so forthcoming with the compliments about how you look and all that stuff. But if they put how they feel aside, if they put if they put you first, and are willing to participate in pursuing you as their partner, then they know that the tank of intimacy for them will be filled up. And on the flip side, for women, sometimes you might be tired, sometimes you might have had a bad day at work, sometimes someone may have cut you off in traffic and you just don't feel like it. Well, if and this is I'm talking about committed relationships here. I'm not talking about one night stands or friends with benefits. I'm talking about a committed relationship, because it takes a committed relationship for you in order to put your partner first. And so for women, if you're not really feeling up to it and you sort of step away and you're like, okay, let's change my mindset and put my partner first, and help him meet his needs, then guess what? On the flip side, after you meet up physically, then some of those things will start to flow, and it'll be easier for him to connect with you on an emotional level, right? So it may seem like you're constantly chasing each other, but that's where the sacrifice and the give and take comes in. Let's see, what else? In terms of, another piece about intimacy, I was talking about where people come from in terms of their youth and their families, that kind of thing. I was working with someone about 5 years ago, and she was terribly abused as a child. And eventually we began to talk about her marriage, and she said to me, I struggle with intimacy. And I said, yeah, I understand. And she looked at me and she said, you don't seem surprised at all. And I said, no, I'm not surprised, because given that this was your trauma when you were a child, of course it spills over into your marriage. And so we had to address the trauma in childhood in order to work on what was going on in her marriage, her closeness with her husband, and the intimacy there. So sometimes you have to get to the root of what's going on for you. Sometimes the marriage problems aren't necessarily about you and your partner now. Sometimes the marriage problems could have started 10, 15, 18 years ago when you were a kid, right? We might be getting married at, I don't know, 27, 34, 45, 52. If we haven't dealt with the history and the struggle and the traumas and the difficulties that we experienced in our childhood, it is going to crop up in that marriage every single time. Okay, now, communication. Before I was talking about when women often come to me and they say, well, he knows why I'm upset. And I would say, well, did you tell them why you were upset? No, but they should know. Well, how should they know? Men don't keep this running tab the way that we do, right? And so sometimes you might be busy. You know, I experience it in my home when there are a list of things to do and I'm running around like crazy, and my partner might be sitting on the couch chilling, watching whatever on TV, and I start to boil, right? Let me just speak for myself. I start to get upset and thinking, he sees that I'm running around like crazy trying to get this and this and this and that done. Why isn't he helping? And when I blow my top and I say, yes, I blow my top too. When I blow my top and I say, hold on, what happened here? Don't you see, blah, 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 blah. He'll say to me, Roxanne, you didn't ask for any help, right? And because he knows that I am Miss, I got it going on and I can do it all by myself, sometimes he sort of hesitates, right? And it took a while for me to say, hey, can you help me with this, that, and the other? And as soon as I voice it, thankfully, I think I feel like I got a good one. But as soon as I voice it, he'll say, okay, well, how soon do you need to get it done? I just need to finish this here, and he'll jump up and he'll help. After a few arguments over our years of togetherness, there are some times when he will actually notice when I am a little bit overwhelmed, or I will say to him, I feel overwhelmed. And then he'll say, what can I take off your plate? And so it is really important that we share what's going on with us. If you are upset and you don't tell them why you're upset, they are not going to figure it out because of their waffle brain. And I don't mean to say that as a derogatory remark or a slight in any way, but their minds are already fixed on the next thing. They are so focused on the work project, or they're so focused on fixing the car, or so focused on the renovation that needs to get done, or they're managing the finances, or whatever it is, that they can't recognize that the reason you're huffing and puffing is because you didn't give them they didn't give you a goodbye kiss this morning when you were going out the door. Kelly says they're not mind readers. Yes, you're right. They're not mind readers. Come on through. Thank you for coming in, guys. They're not mind readers, and they will never be mind readers. And so we have to tell them explicitly what's going on with them, if we want them to chip in, or to lend their support, or to clue in as to why you're mad. Also, let's talk about being mad for a little bit. When was the last time you got upset and you said, you never blah, 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 right? One of the first things I learned in school was I statements. Always use I statements. When I started learning how to use those statements, I was practicing on my husband every single time, and boy, did that annoy him. But once it started to become a routine, then it made life so much easier. If you're familiar with I statements, just drop a heart so I can see that you know what I statements are all about. Basically, instead of saying, you didn't fill the gas tank like I asked you, and now I jumped in the car and it's on E. Or, you didn't help out with the children like I asked you. Or, How come you don't blah, 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 blah. Hey, Sophia, we're just talking about marriage. And when you do that, what happens is you're putting the blame squarely in their lap. And then they get defensive and they shut down. Listen, they already only have 7,000 words a day compared to our 20,000. And so it's so easy for them to clam up and not say anything else. And then we're like, hey, I'm talking to you. Come back in. Sorry, maybe that only happens in my house. But seriously though, if we practice saying things like, when such and such happens, I feel X. When I talk to you and you walk away, I feel like you're not listening to me. I feel disrespected and that hurts my feelings. I wish you wouldn't do that, right? Say what happened. Say how you feel. Make a request, right? Say what happened. Say how you feel. Ask them not to do it that way again, or do it this way instead, or don't do that because it hurts my feelings. It makes me feel like you don't care. State your case in that way rather than, I feel communication is the most important thing in a relationship. I think, I perceive. Exactly. Because it really is about what's going on for you. If your partner says something off the cuff, they may not intend for it to hurt you. And I'll talk about intention in a second. They may not intend for it to hurt you, but you are hurt. And they may not even notice that you're hurt. And instead of saying, you're so thoughtless, right? We're throwing out names, and we don't recognize as well that as much as they only have 7,000 words a day, men have feelings too, man, and they get hurt. They may not say it to you. Often for men, it comes out in anger. And anger, for those of you who are therapists on here, anger is like the tip of the iceberg. It's the emotion that is often the safest one for men to go to. They'll show anger before they show that they're hurt, that they're embarrassed, that they're disappointed, that they're grieving. They'll show anger first. And so when you call them names like careless and thoughtless and disrespectful, then they get their backs up and they're angry, and then they'll stomp off, or there might be a raised voice. I don't know what the situation is like in your relationship, but in order to avoid that altogether, I would say tell them how you perceive, how you feel about what they said or what they did, right? That feels hurtful to me, or it makes me feel like you don't care. Right? Tell them how you feel. Show them your heart. And that will usually bring them around, and you're able to have a better discussion than throwing out accusations and throwing out names, because you're going to get nowhere with that. I can promise you. Okay, so the next thing is other statements to avoid. Always and never. Those are these huge blanket statements. And it's hard for me to explain, but those are other words where people get really defensive, they get their backs up, and they just stop listening, right? They may as well be going, la, 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 I can't hear you, because they've stopped listening. You tell me it always or never. Give me an example. I always something, or I never. You always, or you never. What are some things that you say to your partner, or you used to say to your ex-partner? Tell us. What is it for me? I had to stop using always or never. Let's see. You always sleep in on a Saturday morning when we've got things to do, right? The truth of the matter is, it's not always. There are times when they don't sleep in, when we've got stuff to do. And, I would challenge you or myself to phrase, you never do enough around the house. Exactly. Thanks, Kelly. And when you throw out words like that, they may as well say, well, since you see it like never, I may as well fulfill that. I'm done. Right? What about, 2 weeks ago when I cleaned out the fridge when you were grocery shopping? You didn't see that? What about when I, picked you up on the side of the highway when the freeway when your car broke down? Didn't see that, right? it hits people hard, and it brings up their defenses, and before you know it, you're having a full-on knockdown drag out fight, right? And that's not what you intended to do. Instead, you need to phrase exactly what's going on for you. When you don't help me out with the chores around the house, it becomes too overwhelming for me, and I've got other things to do. Would you be able to help me by doing this, that, and the other? Men don't function in generalizations. You need to be specific. Write a list if you need to. Write a honey-do list, or send them a text or whatever. This weekend, can you clean up the garage for me? And then they'll be able to say, well, I promised, Bob, that I would pick him up from the airport, so I can't clean up the garage today. What about tomorrow? Then you can have a conversation, and then you can adjust your expectations. Kelly says it minimizes the times they do make the effort. That's exactly right. So avoid blanket statements like always and never. Do your best to use I statements. The other thing I want to talk about is intention. Oftentimes when I talk to couples, they will say, well, my partner does this and my partner did that, and this is how I feel, or this is what I assume. Assumptions will kill us all. But what we need to think about, what I often say to clients is, what I say to men as well as women, what do you think your partner's intention was? He hurt my feelings and I feel like scum at the bottom of his shoe. Do you think he intended for you to feel that way? Now, mind you, there are some relationships that are extremely toxic and people yell and scream and behave horribly. And sometimes their intentions are to hurt each other. Sometimes the intentions are to really damage each other emotionally. But I'm not talking to those people, because I don't believe that any one of you here are that way. If intention is pure, if intention is not to hurt your feelings, let's say your husband comes home late in the evenings and he's running around running errands for people in the community, he's going to Costco for the seniors up the street or whatever, and you feel like, well, he never comes home and never shows me any love. His intention is not for you to feel unloved, right? And so we need to examine what your partner's intentions are. And once we do that, then we can, on the rest of it, we can unravel the rest of it and work it through. So I also want to talk about expectation. Often we have these grand expectations of what life is going to be like once we're in this relationship. And you've been holding on to these expectations since you were 5. This is what it's going to look like when I have a boyfriend. This is what it's going to look like when I get engaged. This is what it's going to look like when I get married. And then you couple up, and this poor sucker that you are living with, they have no idea what your 10-year-old expectations are like. And now it feels like they're failing because of the expectations that you have, right? Expectations, unmet expectations will get us every single time. So what needs to happen is that you need to look at what's going on in front of you. And if you need to adjust those expectations, then I encourage you to do so. Hey, Tamara, come on through. If you have to adjust your expectations, then you need to do that. Because expecting when you were 15 and you watched whatever teen romance on TV, and you believed that when you got together with your partner that they were going to be a graduate of an Ivy League university and make 6 figures coming out the gate, and you were going to be a stay-at-home mom and spit out 5 kids and live happily ever after in the country, and you meet someone and it turns out that you fall in love, and it turns out Disney played me. Yes, Tamara says Disney played me. You're right. Because you meet someone and you fall in love and you realize that, maybe they didn't finish college, and maybe they're on an entry-level job, and They need you to work, and you will not be able to be a stay-at-home mom, and maybe your partner doesn't even want kids. I think there's no supposed to be in relationships. They're all going to be different than what you expect if you have those expectations. Yes, we really have to adjust those expectations. I'll tell you, I'll share my expectations. I expected that when I got married, we were probably going to have kids within, or start having a family within the first 2 years, right? But hello, immigration, I moved to this country and we had to put in the work before we got to a place where we were able to have kids. I went back to school, and having children while I was in the middle of going back to school and working part-time, that just wasn't a part of our reality. And I had to grieve the loss of that expectation, right? Did we have arguments? Yes, because I was like, I want my babies now. And my husband was like, we need to be able to afford those diapers first, right? And so I had to grieve the loss of those expectations. And once we were able to get on the same page, then things started to just tick the way that they're supposed to, right? So you got to manage those expectations. So it's past 8:30 and I don't want to keep you much longer. So just to sort of recap what we've been talking about, marriage is hard work. You have to put in the work if you want your relationship to work. Specifically speaking about marriage, it's more than just a wedding and a pretty dress and getting married on a hill with 500 of your closest friends, because once those friends go home, once you take off the wedding dress and you put on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, life gets real, and you have to be able to manage each other behind closed doors. There's no shame in accessing support. I think premarital counseling is a really, really great idea. It helps you to sort of understand what you're walking into, how your partner grew up, how you grew up, how you're expecting in the marriage to work. Are we going to have defined roles? Are we not? Are we going to have children? Are we not? How are we going to discipline them? Who's going to be in charge of disciplining them? Are we going to spank the kids the way your mom spanked you, or are we not going to? There's lots of things to talk about. Have a good evening, Sherilyn. Yes, Tamara says it's the highest level of commitment. You're right. You have to look into how you were raised, because that will impact how you behave in your marriage relationship. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. We are very, very different creatures in talking about heterosexual relationships. Men approach things differently. Women have 20,000 words a day. Men only have 7,000. Women's thoughts are all connected and all intertwined with their emotions, and men see things compartmentalized and they're not connected. And so they have a hard time. We have to really work at connecting with each other. Men and women view intimacy differently. You're welcome. Yes, lots of great discussions to have together. Men and women view intimacy differently. Women need to have their emotional tank full before they can fill up a man's sexual tank. A man needs to have their sexual tank full before they can fill up a woman's emotional tank. So it feels like we're always chasing each other around, but there's give and take. Let's see, communication. Try and be open and as clear and honest as you can be. Do not assume that you can read each other's minds, because you cannot. Both persons have to be willing to put in the work for the marriage and the relationship to work. Yes. Nora says, commitment for sure. All this explains why we speak so many words than men. That's true. Adjust your expectation, guys. These relationships are not easy. But if you're willing to put in the hard work, it can be done. And listen, if you're having a difficult time in your relationship right now, I wouldn't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up too much. I don't think there's any relationship that has lasted for over a decade that hasn't had its challenges. And those of you on here who've been with your partner for a long time can attest to that. I can certainly attest to that. And I'm a therapist, and we've had some difficult times. I know, Nora, I know you can attest to that. You've been married for 19 years. Guys, it's worth it if you have a good partner and you're willing to put in the hard work. So Don't discount your relationship if you're having a hard time. Seek support if you need to. There is no shame in going to counseling. You guys, thank you so much for joining me. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take care of your mind. And don't forget to join me here next Wednesday at 8 for... Actually, no. Next Wednesday is Canada Day. So I have to think about whether or not I'm going to be having Afterthought. All right, you guys. Take care. Have a good night. Bye.